All right, let's get into it. Why does Novak Djokovic do this? And by this, I mean get into it with the crowd when he's winning 6-0, 6-0 over Adrian Mannarino. Something like that. Why does he get agitated by the crowd? Why does he seem to get really offended when people boo him or cheer against him when other players don't? I'm going to get into that in this video and talk about some of my thoughts, especially in the match last night where Djokovic absolutely dog walked Adrian Mannarino 6-0, 6-0, 6-3. And there was some controversy in the match where Djokovic was frustrated a little bit by the umpire and the crowd. And we'll get into it. We're going to break down the other fourth round matches, but we're going to focus on the big one from last night, the absolutely cooking that Djokovic put on Mannarino. It's going to be good. Let's get into it. Here's the slice. All right. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, clicking the subscribe button is scientifically proven to increase your tennis skill by about 24%. Shockingly, the same amount of majors that Novak Djokovic has won. So go and do that. Thanks for being here. So last night, I predicted, let's just start it this way. I predicted Djokovic would beat Mannarino in 3 sets. I did not predict that it would be 6-0, 6-0, 1-0 at one point. So that was absolutely crazy. Djokovic played an amazing match, which we'll get into the stats of, playing his probably best tennis of the tournament. It really did. I called him Tequila Man in the video before because he had joked about him drinking tequila. It was why he started to kind of play better in his career as of late. And he's really peaking in Adrian Mannarino at 20 in seeded 20 here at the Australian Open. And it really looked like a guy who had come out, from drinking tequila, not preparing for the matches, not practicing, versus a guy, Novak Djokovic, the greatest champion the men's game has ever seen, who's been training, who's been practicing, who's been, eating healthy. It looked like a matchup between those two types of guys. Ultimate pro versus like a club player. Wasn't Adrian Mannarino's best performance by any means, and it was one of Djokovic's better. But what was controversial in this match to me was the fact that Djokovic still seemed to be competing and not really reading the room like you would expect someone when it's obviously the match is basically over at 6-0, 6-0, 1-0. It was interesting to see Djokovic getting mad at his box throughout the match in the early parts, even though he was winning so clearly. He had, as he said, heated conversations with his box. He got into it with the fans at one point, and that was the interesting part to me. So initially what I saw happen was Adrian Mannarino finally wins the game at 6-0, 6-0, 1-0. So he gets to 1-1 in the third set, and the crowd goes nuts. Of course, the French guys in the crowd, they go ballistic, and they're cheering and chanting while Djokovic is toweling off, getting ready to go serve. Then, which I didn't really understand at the time, Djokovic gets upset that I believe the shot clock was started while the crowd was still going nuts. So he likes to wait for it to be completely quiet before he serves. And then he said to the umpire, "Why did you start the clock?" a couple of times, and then went up to the umpire to talk to them. And then he couldn't hear, and everyone starts booing, which is classic in Australia. Maybe more for Djokovic, but it's not unheard of. I saw the video where Federer at the French Open in 2021 against Marin Cilic got called for time violation. He went to the net and argued the umpire for like 2 minutes, and there was a bunch of whistling and clicking and a little bit of booing, and there was barely any crowd there because it was COVID. So it happens. That's normal. And then Djokovic gets kind of offended by the crowd there and starts conducting the crowd, which is very classic. And I'm like, why does he do this? Like, that to me seems weird. I wouldn't imagine Federer or Nadal doing what Djokovic is doing. And now the Djokovic fans here who are having their blood boil by watching me disparage him in the slightest say he doesn't have to be like Djokovic or Federer and Nadal. That's true. I'm glad he's not like Federer and Nadal. But I think a normal player, when you're winning 6-0, 6-0, just would kind of let things go at this point and just relax. I said only Djokovic could get offended by a crowd cheering for his opponent when he's beating 6-0, 6-0. So strange. So it was a mix. He was getting offended, I think, by getting booed, but he was more getting mad at the umpire for starting the clock, which, so he wasn't really getting offended by the crowd, maybe, but he was going at it with the crowd in different ways for sure. And yeah, he, at the end, for example, he said it's good. It felt like it was a good idea to give away a game at that point to cut the tension in the arena for him. So that's another weird thing to say as someone who you're absolutely beating the brains off of 6-0, 6-0, to say that you gave him a game. That doesn't necessarily fly in the locker room, I don't think, but I don't think anyone will really care. But my point in all this is, why does Djokovic do this? Why is he so sensitive to what the crowd's doing? Why is he so intense even when in a match like this when it doesn't seem to matter? Well, there's a few reasons for that. Either he's like mentally fragile, which I don't think is true because he is won 24 Grand Slams. He's a mental giant on the court. The other thing is he's intense. He's beyond intense, which is the case, I believe. And in a match like this, where it's kind of a joke after a while, 6-0, 6-0, a competitor and a champion like Djokovic needs to keep himself engaged in the match. And I think that's what he was doing by kind of nitpicking himself when he was still up 6-0, 6-0, getting into it with his box and then getting into it with the crowd eventually. There's an interesting quote or answer here from Djokovic in his press conference, which I'll play for you, which he's asked if he can kind of relax now after he's beaten most of the records that he set out to beat. And yeah, listen to his response. It's very, very interesting.
Considering all the records that you've broken, are you now enjoying tennis more than ever?
I thought maybe I would this year feel slightly more relaxed, for lack of better term, or maybe less tension, less stress on practice sessions, on matches, but it's not. It's actually, it is as it always was, a very high intensity, and you can see it even today. I mean, I was 6-love, 2-love up, and it was a long game, and I was like, going on with discussions, heated discussions with my box, and I just, I always look for the best performance for myself, and so I put a lot of effort every single day into making it happen. And when it doesn't happen, I'm frustrated, and so so it's still there. The fire is still burning, and I think that's what allowed me to be where I am and achieve the things that I have achieved. I part of me, of course, is enjoying the process. Otherwise, I wouldn't be playing, because in the end of the day, it's not. I'm not playing anymore because I need more money or because I need more points or whatever. I just want to play, and I really enjoy the competition. So the drive is there, and that's the most important thing an athlete should always have and nurture.
Anyways, I thought that was a super interesting answer. He basically says that, he thought he'd be able to relax after getting to 24 slams, getting the most weeks at number one, becoming the most successful champion that the men's game has ever seen. But that's not the case. In order for him to still enjoy, he says what he enjoys about tennis is the competition. He needs to be intense. He doesn't know how to switch off that intensity in matches. So that's why he acts the way he does. And he's, intense in a match, even though the match is not very intense anymore. So I think that's a pretty good reason to act the way he has. I think he'll always want to be loved by the crowd. And if he feels disrespected by the crowd, then he's going to give it back to them. We've seen that over and over and over. And he wants to be loved by everyone, it seems. That'll never happen because not everyone's going to love you in general, but especially when you're more of a polarizing figure like Djokovic has been on the court throughout his career. So, yeah, that was an entertaining match last night. A bit of a crazy result versus Tequila Man. But let's move on to the actual match. How did Djokovic look in the actual match? And obviously, he looked amazing. So he wins 6-0, 6-0, 6-3. If you go into the stats of the match, you can see that he was absolutely serving the brains off of the ball. 17 aces, 70% first serve in, great. 81% first serve win. Winners to errors, 31 winners, 15 unforced errors. Literally a 2-to-1 ratio on winners and unforced errors. And, so that's basically just pitching a perfect match as far as Djokovic is concerned. So that's a great match win over Mannarino. Obviously, Mannarino in general is never going to be that's not a super difficult fourth round opponent, but it's going to get more difficult from here. He will be playing Taylor Fritz, who beats Stefanos Tsitsipas in a 4-set match. So let's talk about that quickly. Taylor Fritz beats Stefanos Tsitsipas, and Stefanos Tsitsipas, I've heard now, could potentially drop out of the top 10. So has Stefanos Tsitsipas peaked? Is he coming down? I've held off on saying that for a long time, but the results don't lie. He has literally peaked when it comes to his ranking. He used to be ranked higher, and it seems like he used to be more dangerous at all these events. So this is the ebb and flow of players' careers. You never know. I'm never going to write anyone off, but Taylor Fritz is a great player, and he's playing well, and that's a tough match to win, but it doesn't seem like Tsitsipas is trending towards winning majors anymore. It seems like he's trending towards having an amazing career, being a great player like a Berdych, someone like that. But we thought he was going to be at a different level when he started out. And he could get there. He could get back there. I believe he has the tools to do it. But yeah, very interesting. So Djokovic will play Fritz. My predictions for the fourth round were Djokovic in 3. That happened. Tsitsipas in 5. That didn't happen. So he's going to play. Djokovic is going to play Taylor Fritz, who Fritz has never beaten him. They played at the U.S. Open last fall, and Djokovic beat the brains off of him. It wasn't even a close or good match. They did have a really close match, actually, at the Australian Open in 2021, a 5-setter. Djokovic was injured during that match. Fritz still couldn't beat him. So I really don't have much confidence at all in Fritz tomorrow or whenever they play. So it'll be a tougher quarterfinal, but it'll still be huge advantage Djokovic. Back to the draw. So yeah, Fritz gets through Tsitsipas, and then in the bottom half of the top half, Sinner beats Khachanov in 3. I predicted Sinner in 4 over Khachanov. He only needs 3. He's looking so good. He's looking like unstoppable. He's looking like a top 4 contender in this tournament, like we thought he was, like we knew he was. And I actually took Demon Hour over Rublev in 5, but it went Rublev in 5. Kind of dog walking the last 2 sets, 6-3, 6-0. So I didn't watch that match. I didn't see how it went. Kind of surprising to see Demon Hour fade like that at the end of the match. Physically, maybe Rublev outlasted him physically. 2 tight tiebreakers in the second and third set. Unbelievable performance there. Mental stamina for Rublev to come back after losing 2 tiebreakers. That's got to be tough. So yeah, we got Sinner versus Rublev in the other quarterfinal, which is an amazing matchup. So that'll be wild. That'll be a huge hitting affair. And then Djokovic versus Fritz will be a huge hitting affair. And you never know, if Fritz plays his best, he can challenge Djokovic, but he hasn't played his best recently. He's basically most of the matches hasn't won any sets versus Djokovic. So that'll be tough. But that's that on the top half of the men's draw. That's a look at what grinds Djokovic's gears and how this cat operates. I'm going to get hate for this for sure in the comments. People are going to call me a Djokovic hater, Djokovic, whatever. I'm not a hater. I respect Djokovic unbelievably. And that's why I thought it was so interesting that answer from him in the press conference about why he still drives, why he's still stressed out on court, why he still stresses in his practice sessions and he's a perfection. That's what it takes to win 24 slams. That's what it takes to have the all-time most weeks at number 1. That's what it takes. It takes being obsessed, as Conor McGregor would once said. So Djokovic is that way. He's an unbelievable champion, and I thought it was pretty funny, him beating the brakes off of Adrian Mannarino and the crowd last night in Melbourne. It's becoming a theme. We'll see you guys next time here on The Slice. Leave me your thoughts, as I'm sure you will, below.